Welcome to my podcast, All Things Agriculture. I'm your host, Eric Carey, and thank you for tuning in. On this podcast, get to know those who work in agriculture on a daily basis. Find out what they do, the challenges and opportunities they face, and what they think the future holds for agriculture. You'll also have a chance to hear what they do for fun when they aren't working hard to feed the world. If you're watching on YouTube, please consider subscribing to my channel and leaving a thumbs up and a comment below. If you prefer the audio version, you can listen for free on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Breaker, Pocket Casts, and Radio Public. And if you'd like to get in contact with me, please email me at allthingsagr@gmail.com. Thank you and enjoy the episode. Hi everyone, welcome back to my podcast, All Things Agriculture. I am pleased to be joined today with Abbie Teeter. Abbie, how you doing?
I'm good, Eric. How are you doing?
Good. Thanks for coming out.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, definitely. We're able to dodge the inclement weather. It kind of settled down before you headed out this way. So
yeah, for sure. It's nice out. Pretty outside now.
Yeah. The roads are clean too.
Mm-hmm.
I was kind of worried this afternoon. I'm like, man, I hope it's not going to be like this all night and the roads will just be white out. And sometimes what happens is the main roads around the farm are good, and then you get on the Lick Street and it's like, you can't tell the field from the road. So
yeah, absolutely. We have that too.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah. So yeah, I guess we'll hop right into it. Why don't you kind of give your background and, tell us your story and hop right into it.
Yeah. So I grew up on my family's farm just outside of Ithaca. So we raised beef cattle many years ago. It was a dairy farm. My grandfather transitioned it to beef, and then it's been beef ever since. So in high school, I was, I think, as active in ag programs as I could be. So 4-H, the Dairy Princess program in our area, FFA when we had it. We only had it senior year at my school. And then after that, I went to college at Cobleskill. So I have a degree in ag business management. And just about right out of college, I started working for Cooperative Extension. And I worked with small farms, grazing farms, organic dairy farms. And I did that for about 3 years. And then I moved on to Organic Valley, which is where I work now.
Okay. So I guess going back, your family farm, how did that start? Where, how many generations has been on it? Yeah.
So my brother and I are the 6th generation to be on our farm. So it started my many great-grandfather.
Yeah. Count back on your fingers, right? Yeah. I had to do the same thing.
Yeah. So he bought a couple of land plots after the war and started farming there. And it's just been passed down from generation to generation. So my dad took over. My parents made some improvements on the farm. And then now my husband and I have moved back to the farm. My brother is also local, going to move back to the farm pretty soon too. And we all farm together.
Okay. So what beef, right?
Yep.
Beef.
Yep. So we have a herd of Hereford beef cattle on our farm. And actually my husband just bought a Red Angus bull calf. So we'll have some crosses in the future.
Okay. So what, you sell those wholesale, like on the hoof, or do you, butcher them and sell them? Like, I guess, what do you guys try to angle in terms of sales and all that?
Yeah. So we, for many years, actually, were just kind of growing and improving what we had. So we didn't have very many beef sales. And very recently, we're getting to a point where we are selling live animals and selling as half and wholes. Right now we're selling ground beef from an animal that we didn't think was going to make it through the winter, and, just continual improvements.
Did you have that COVID spike where like people were just basically like, hey, you have cows, did that hit you guys on?
It did. So we actually just coincidentally had sent a cow to a butcher for ground beef. Must have been March. And
Good
so
timing.
we were selling cows, and all of a sudden there was no meat on the store, on the shelves in the stores. And so, people had known that we were selling ground beef. And so we sold in days.
Wow.
It was, it wasn't the whole animal. We had sold most of it already in prior sales, but we had, some that we hadn't sold, and there was a real demand for it. It just went just like that.
Were people just showing, like calling you, just showing up at your door, or how were people going about looking for it?
So we had posted it on Facebook, and then family friends knew that we were selling it, and I work at Eddydale Farms Produce, a little produce stand by my house, just on the weekends. And so we had put a sign up there and just said, hey, like, call my dad if you're interested in ground beef. And so, people would call my dad, and then just arrange a time to come and pick it up.
Wow.
Yeah, it was incredible.
So have you kind of built up like a clientele, like people are coming back and say, hey, I want to buy X amount next year? Or you find it's kind of a great way to get into it and build a clientele, wasn't it?
Yeah, it is. Absolutely. And we found we had clientels who we, knew who would always come back, but because we didn't have that kind of steady demand for, or that steady supply of it, rather, it wasn't a consistent sale. But I think now that we have made improvements and we'll continue to have a steady supply of meat, we'll have, clients continue to come back. So we have people who bought meat last year who said, call me when you have more and we'll buy more.
So that the produce stand you work for, did they see a huge influx of, because just from people I've spoken to who do retail, it's like local food just exploded last spring with the COVID.
It did. Yep. And they were very accommodating for people. So they started doing like call ahead orders. So people could call ahead and they could get what they wanted. And then we would just deliver it to your car for you when you got there. And so I think there was, a huge increase in people who were interested in local, but also who didn't want to go to Wegmans or Walmart to get food, and they could get produce and cheese at Eddydale. So that was where they went.
Yeah. I think the whole, well, I mean, better than I do working extension, before with Organic Valley, the whole local movement, it's been moving that way. But I think just like a lot of other things, COVID kind of kicked it into high gear, that shift, don't you think?
Absolutely. And I think that was, from my standpoint, that was my hope all along, is that people would really take that time to learn about where their food came from, right? So farmers never stopped working and they continued to produce food for consumers. And so my hope was that people really started to think about that and think about where their food was coming from rather than just from the grocery store, right? And so they had a deeper understanding of what they were getting and where they were getting it and where it was coming from. So my hope is that they continue to learn and, follow through and get food, local food.
Yeah, I think that's maybe one of the positives, I guess the bright spots out of all this is I think it's here to stay, that whole shift to local, especially, I mean, you live a lot closer to Ithaca than I do. So you have that market of people who are already looking for local food to begin with, and it just really kick that into overdrive.
Yeah. And so it's such a weird thing. It's always been weird for me to think about, because I think Ithaca as a whole has a very different mindset, right? So, they're kind of a step ahead of the game in knowing, the local food movement and being interested in that. Whereas other places didn't have that understanding. I just think Ithaca had a greater understanding of it going into it.
Yeah, with their for people who haven't been to Ithaca, the farmers market is pretty cool. I've been there a couple times. A lot of really good food you can buy. And have you ever been involved with the farmers market down there in terms of selling or
Yeah, never selling. I've definitely gone as a consumer.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah. And probably when you're in Dairy Princess and stuff like that, or 4-H, did you do a lot with the farmers market?
It was very tricky for us to get into, and it is something, so I'm still involved with our Dairy Princess program. I'm still in the committee. So it's something that even still, we try to get out there to speak to consumers as much as possible. So, we've thought about different ways that we could get into the farmers market, working with yogurt processors, or, there are a couple different farmers who are making cheese on farm who sell down there. But it's just finding, a good fit for you to get in there.
I guess it's kind of a good segue into the Dairy Princess program that I didn't know you're on the committee for it as well.
Yeah.
And you went through it. I mean, I have some exposure to it. My sister was in it. My mom helped out. So why don't you kind of give people who don't know what it's all about, give it its.
Yeah. So the Dairy Princess program is a program for young women who are involved in dairy in many different aspects, right? So you don't have to be from a dairy farm. I was from a beef farm when I joined the program. Actually, I think your sister was Princess my very first year.
Okay. Yeah.
But So it's a way for young women who are interested in dairy to have an outlet to advocate for it and to really educate consumers about the importance of it, about, how healthy dairy is for you, how nutritious it is, and the care overall that farmers take for their animals, right? So it's a way for young girls to really advocate for an industry that they're proud of.
And there's a lot of good skills you learn
Absolutely
from it. I
Yeah.
know Megan, my sister's with her job now, presenting and stuff. She's like, "Oh, I learned a lot of those skills while I was presenting and doing speeches for Dairy Prince." So yeah, why don't you hit on some of those skills you learned from it? I think it's a great program to push out there and promote.
And everybody, I think anybody who's a past princess will talk about how much their public speaking improved. So I'm a fast talker, which I still am, but you couldn't even understand what I was saying when I joined the program. And, I could say a sentence I could say a paragraph in a breath, just talk. And so, the moms and the other members on the committee would just look at me and say, slow down. And it really, overall, it improves your public speaking. You can join the program in our county at 12 or 13. And so at 12 or 13, you'll have a microphone in your hand at a cow show and say, okay, talk to the farmers and tell them what we're up to as a program. So, that's not an experience that many people get, at the age of 12 and 13 and, up to 16, 17, 18, some women are in their 20s when they're princess. So, public speaking and presentations are absolutely something that you hone in on. And I think even just conversations with strangers, right? So members of the public, and talking about, what you're interested in and what you think is good about the dairy industry. That's a skill that you learn in the Dairy Princess program. And one thing, on top of that was really nice for me in the program is I went to a school that didn't have very many farm kids. So growing up, it was always, that was always like my fun fact in elementary school, is that I grew up on a farm. And there just were not many kids in ag at all in the school that I went to, which is just, because of the location of my farm and because of my school district. So it was really nice for me at, 12, 13, 14, 15 to, instead of being this person who had this like different lifestyle and this different upbringing, to have a group of girls who were also from farms and who also had that background and had that, different lifestyle and different knowledge set that many people I knew didn't.
Yeah. So what's the maximum age you can be in it?
I think it's 24.
Wow. So if you wanted to, you could spend many years.
You could spend a lot
if you
of
really
years.
if you really enjoy it.
Yep, because you don't have to stop once you're princess. You could come back and be an alternate. So you can't be the princess 2 years in a row. But
okay.
You could run for princess every other year if you so chose.
Okay. And then it even goes, if you really want to, there's a whole state pageant. You can become the state princess as well. And that.
Yeah. So actually our New York State pageant just happened, must have been last week, Tuesday.
Okay.
So yeah, every county princess has the opportunity to run for state princess during their year of princess. So when they're crowned their county princess, they'll go to a training with the state court, the current state court, and also employees at the American Dairy Association, and they'll continue to work with the state court throughout the year in different events. So in a normal year, you would work, with the court at State Fair or at Empire Farm Days. There are a lot of different opportunities. And then in February, every county princess has the opportunity to run to be on the new state court.
Has Tompkins County ever had a
No.
state or been on the court at all for the state?
And I think we have not had huge interest in being on the state court. So there are some counties and there are some girls who are diehard set that's all they want. Like that's their goal. There are girls who work for it their whole life. And I think that our county is just a much more laid back program. It's not something that most of our girls have been super interested in, but maybe one day, hopefully one day.
Yeah, exactly. It's a lot of work once you're stated. It's like every single weekend throughout the entire, maybe with COVID it was different, but still a typical year.
And it's a lot of work as a county princess because you're traveling all over the county, but as a state princess, you're covering the entire state, which is, a big state. We live in central New York and it still takes 6 hours to get to different places in our state. So it's definitely a lot of work and a lot of time commitment and a lot of work for the mom too, for the parents, right? So.
Yeah, especially if they come from a farm. They come from a farm,
Yeah.
It's
So
not like you just let the farm sit for a
Right.
day and it'll take care of itself. And no, you gotta. It's
absolutely. And it's 2 people away from the farm because, the princess would go with her mother or her father. So it's definitely a huge commitment.
Yeah. So did you? You said you went to Cobleskill. Did you end up any of the other people you met throughout the years doing princess stuff? Were they at Cobleskill as well? Because Cobleskill is a pretty ag.
Yeah.
It's a big time ag school.
It is. Yeah, absolutely. It is. Yeah. So there were definitely many people that I knew who through the princess program were there. A lot of them were animal science majors, so I didn't run into them, but definitely there were lots of people that I knew through the Dairy Princess program. And even after college, so after Cobleskill, I can remember right out of college when I had first started working with Extension, there was a time when I had, during 1 week, I went to 3 meetings. And at every single meeting, there was somebody I knew from the Dairy Princess program who was, kind of left the program, gone on with her life and in her career and has stayed in ag. And I just, continually, even today, I still bump into people that I know through the Dairy Princess program.
That's cool. Good networking.
Absolutely.
Great
Absolutely.
networking. If for those who want to get involved with the program, is there people to I can put contact information with this video in the description if you had or I guess what the best way for them to get a hold of someone.
Yeah. So you in our county, you would just contact either a member of a court or the parents or anybody on the committee. So I can definitely leave that info with you. And then in any other county, it's the same thing. If you were interested in the program in your county, you would just contact somebody on the court or on the committee and they would put you to the right person if they weren't the right person.
And like you said, you don't even have to come from a farm.
Nope.
It's just if you have interest in doing it. And
you just have to have interest in dairy and, the knowledge to learn or the willingness to learn if you don't already have that knowledge. And just be interested in dairy. That's a requirement.
That's pretty easy. If you like, you guys make sundaes, and if you like to eat sundaes, it's a great, go find the Dairy Princess at Farm State area. They're always making sundaes or something. So good food.
Or yogurt or cheese. There's always good stuff.
You also did 4-H. I never did 4-H. We didn't have a 4-H program or anything. So I guess what did you do when you were doing 4-H?
So when I was younger, I was involved with the rabbit club in 4-H. So we always had rabbits on our farm, which were mainly just pets for my brother and I. But they also allowed us to kind of get our feet into 4-H. And then when I was older, I joined the exchange club, which I actually think is no longer alive.
Within the 4-H or? Okay.
Yeah. So it was a really cool program. So it would be really sad if, I think that there just wasn't much interest in it, but you basically as a group, you would raise money for a year and you would exchange with another 4-H program somewhere else in the country. So you would spend a week every summer or every other summer, you'd spend a week in another state. And then the following year, that club would come and spend a week here in New York and we would take them around New York.
Oh, cool. But you don't think they do that anymore?
Yeah, I think that they just didn't have enough members in the club. So I think it is phased out, but I'm not positive on that. But that was a really great experience. I went to Montana and Tennessee and Colorado.
Wow.
All, with my 4-H club.
And 4-H is typically elementary school right up through high school, right?
Yep, through 18. And lots of different programs and different counties have different availabilities and different programs. But lots of different things and different topics.
Yeah, like I said, I don't really know much about it, but I know people talk about you can join different programs. Some will concentrate on, like you said, rabbits, and it's
Horses,
a whole
cows,
different, all not just dairy or any one subset. It's a bunch of.
If you have a good 4-H program in your county, then there should be a program for anything you're interested in. And if not, I'm pretty sure you can travel to nearby counties.
Okay, so you can cross over. Yeah, another great, I think, program along with an FFA. So you had an FFA program your senior year?
So when I was in high school, the only FFA program I believe in the county was actually through our New Visions program at BOCES. So it wasn't even through Ithaca High School. It was through this BOCES program, which is only your senior year.
So did you do New Visions?
I did.
Animal science?
Yes. Well, life science, but yes.
Life science, okay.
Yeah, that's the animal science program.
Yeah. So I knew a guy who did New Visions when I was in school. Obviously I didn't do it. So what what exactly is New Visions?
Yeah. So New Visions is also a really great program.
You are really involved.
Yeah. Lots of great programs in my life.
Yeah.
It's a program that you would do your senior year. So it's different than a typical BOCES program, because a typical BOCES program would be your junior and your senior year. And so this one is only for senior year, and it's at Cornell University. And so if you were interested in being a vet, for example, you could do rotations through the vet hospital. And so you could shadow different areas in the vet hospital, like the dentistry program, general surgery, the emergency room, large animal. So you could kind of rotate through those different areas with the different veterinarians and vet techs at the hospital. But if that was not what you're interested in, if you were interested in really anything in this kind of life sciences category, then you could really tailor the program to be what you wanted it to. So when I was in it, we were in the classroom Monday and Friday, and that was when we did like our government and our history learning classes like we would do in school, because you were gone for most of the day. And then Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, you would go out on rotation. And so you would do this thing that interests you. So, I was really at the time interested in marketing and promotion of the ag industry as a whole. And so I worked on different projects, specifically to marketing. So, for example, I created lots of new promotional materials for the New Visions program as a whole.
Okay. So you kind of your work was kind of helping to promote New Visions. That was kind of okay.
Yeah. And I would do different, I would work with farms, to talk about marketing, but I was still so young, I think, and so new to what I wanted to do into marketing as a whole, that it was all just more of a learning experience than product driven. There wasn't a huge end product.
Yeah. You're just, you're soaking it up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is that available? Tompkins County, is it only Tompkins County that's available to, or is there other counties?
Yeah, so it's through BOCES, which is Tompkins, Seneca, and Tioga, I think.
Yeah, TST.
Yeah, in our area. But there are other BOCES throughout the state who I believe also have New Visions programs. I don't know if they have the same life science program.
Yeah, we're fortunate with Cornell having the resources of
absolutely
the one of the top ag schools in the world. So
yeah.
Was Matea teaching when you were there?
Nope. So this was with Michelle Klein.
Okay.
Yeah, who is still the teacher, I believe.
She is, okay.
Yeah. So, but yeah, Matea does the animal science class at BOCES.
Okay.
So that would be the 2-year program.
Yeah, there's a lot.
Yeah.
You got to, try. Yeah, because then you have BOCES as well, which is another animal science, which is also a good program. So for those who don't know, as Abbie has laid out very well, there's a lot of really good ag programs that you can get involved at a very young age.
Yeah. And which again was so nice, because really the school that I went to was not focused on ag at all. And being, from a farm and interested in ag, and that's where I wanted my career to land. It was really nice to have so many opportunities that I could get into outside of school, because it wasn't something that I had the opportunity to do at school.
Yeah. Did you go to Ithaca?
I did.
School?
Yeah.
So you were definitely the one farmer, probably.
Yeah.
Lone farmer.
Like less than 5% of the school was farm kids.
So I guess then moving on, you go to Cobleskill, and what did you? I think you said what you majored. Forgive me if I forgot. What,
yeah. So I majored in ag business.
That was it.
And when I had gone to school, I thought, I'm going to go into marketing, right? That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go into marketing and promotion. And I wanted to spend my whole life as a dairy princess, right? So I wanted to teach, I wanted to spend my life educating the public about why ag and dairy was so important, and why we needed farms in our country.
So did you ever look at like ADA, American Dairy Association? Did that ever, jobs like that ever come up, or because you end up kind of working for extension, which is probably similar to what you went to school for in terms of promotion and stuff? Yeah.
So what was funny is when I started working at extension, I didn't really work with the public at all. I was working more so with farms, with farmers, and working on kind of that side of extension, rather than working as, an ag educator who works with the public and, works with school kids and works with different adults. But I think, I found out pretty early on that, so I did an internship actually, and that's really when it kind of hit me. I did an internship at Quality Milk at Cornell, and I spent some time in the office working on their marketing, and I spent some time in their field with their field techs, and I learned pretty quickly into my internship that what I preferred was being in the field and working with farmers rather than, sitting at a computer and promoting services. So.
Yeah, it's kind of can be monotonous probably sitting
Absolutely.
in a desk all day. Yeah. And at least getting out of the field is get to see people and
yeah. And they're people with a shared interest, right? So with the public, when you're working, and absolutely we need people who are educating the public about the importance of agriculture. But when you're working with farmers, you're talking with people with a shared interest. You're not, trying to push what you think is great on them most of the time because you both think that ag is great.
Yeah. So I guess you did all sorts of projects with FFA and you helped out kind of with the dairy apprenticeship program. You did, I think you were FFA's right-hand woman. You really helped them get stuff done.
I know. And I
he missed you after you left.
I felt bad for leaving, but sometimes you have to.
Oh, we're back. Well, I'm back. It's kind of going to be a choppy edit. I got a call during our talk right in the middle of it, and cow was down, had to go over, give her calcium, all that good stuff. And so I'm back now, and thank you for waiting.
Yeah, not a problem. A nice little intermission.
Yeah. It wasn't maybe 30 minutes, hopefully not too much longer. So
not too bad at all.
But I guess I'm trying to think where we left off. I guess we'll go back to your work in Cooperative Extension with FFA. So we'll hop back right up, get back into that.
Yeah. So when I worked for Cooperative Extension, we did a lot of work so I did a lot with dairy grazing apprenticeship. We have a soil health trailer. The South Central New York Dairy and Field Crops Team FFA program has a soil health trailer. So we got to take that all around the state and then also different places in the Northeast. So he traveled all through the hills of Vermont with it one summer. And so my position with FFA was actually entirely grant funded. So really we were doing work based on what grants told us that we were doing. So we also, I did a lot of work. We did some monitoring on grass-fed farms, grass-fed organic dairy farms specifically, because there was really no research done on them at that point in time.
So you're trying to get new information out for producers, kind of bring it in, collect it, and then just show your results, essentially.
Yeah. And so, when we had first started this, it was, years ago now, but it was, there was no really benchmarking or any kind of information on production or cost of production for grass-fed dairy farms. There is a lot of information out there for conventional dairy farms and for organic dairy farms, but grass-fed was still such a new sector in the industry that there really wasn't much information. So we started mainly focusing on just production benchmarks. So farmers who participated in our study could see where they kind of fell on the scale of other grass-fed organic dairy producers in New York and Vermont was, where we really studied. But now Sarah Flack and Dr. Heather Darby, both from Vermont, have taken that program and that study onto much deeper levels. So they're doing a much more in-depth nationwide study now.
Wow, that's kind of cool. You got to help get that started, man. That's pretty exciting.
Yeah, it was great. So we worked with Sarah and Heather, when we were doing the benchmarking, and then they just kind of took it and ran with it. So.
Yeah. It. Were there any sort of surprising results, I guess, looking at it, if you can remember, that like, wow, you didn't expect it, or? Yeah.
Well, I think, like any sector, there was there were huge variables between production, between butterfat, protein levels. And it was just nothing straight across the board. So it was really interesting to kind of look from month to month. So I would generate this report for farmers that basically showed their production and how it grew or, how it fell over a 2-year period over time. So we started at 1 year and then we did it for 2 years. And then also where they fell, on the production scale with every farmer that was participating. So I think we had maybe 15 or 20 farmers participating. So it was just really interesting to see kind of how things shifted from month to month from different producers.
Would you see overall between the 15 producers, would you see trends, or was it kind of, it was very trendy though? It wasn't, you had your outliers of course, but for the most part you could kind of predict as the time went on. Yeah.
And just like, you would see on any farm, the seasonality of production, so it was nice to kind of see it would have been really cool to continue to look at it, on more than just a 2-year period. But, to see how production kind of rises and falls throughout the year.
Yeah. Especially with we see that with the grazing,
Absolutely.
In the summer months, you you can start out real strong. I'm sure, as you know better than I do, you've done the May, early June can be really good, but then by the heat and then the late fall and, falls off.
Getting out on good pasture, and then it has to recover and it has to regrow, and then of course it's hot. Heat takes a lot out of them.
Did you see any I'm sure you saw variability in terms of the length of rest period? So let's say you go into paddock A and how many days. Did you see any sort of data that showed what you thought the best time was for rest?
So we didn't necessarily monitor that from different farms year to year. It was something that we looked at when we first sent out a survey to all grass-fed farmers in the Northeast. It was something, but it is very variable, and it's variable from farm to farm, but location to location, pasture to pasture, it's different. And then also throughout the year, right? So they come back faster, and then, as you get later in the grazing season, it takes them longer to recover. Yeah,
that's kind of in the spring, early summer, we'll run a, kind of a tighter window. We can push 15, 20 days, but then I have to extend that out once we get into the mill, and then everything starts to slow down. So it's harder. I'm trying to increase my days of rest, but there's kind of less grass out there. So it can be a challenge.
Yeah, absolutely. And there are different ways, every farmer I think goes about it differently. And I tell people all the time, you have to figure out what works best for you, because what works best for you here isn't going to be what works best for your neighbor down the road, even though you're so close. So it definitely takes time to figure that out and figure out how to get the best of what you have.
So did you do any other sort of projects? I mean, that must have been one of them when you were working with Cooperative Extension.
That was really our biggest research project was through that. That was a SARE grant. But then a lot, again, with the dairy grazing apprenticeship program. And then, we, again, took the soil health trailer out all over.
That's the one where you run the water over different types. If people haven't seen it, you could probably explain better than I can.
Yeah.
For those who haven't seen it. It's cool.
Yeah, it's a rainfall simulator. So you have these different pans of soil from different areas, and it simulates rainfall. I think it's an inch of rain that it simulates. So, you see how the rain hits different managed soil. So, how it hits a cornfield versus how it hits a pasture. And so you can see how much water infiltrates and goes through the soil, and it's collected underneath the pans, and then how much runs off is collected in front of the pans. And then it also shows you how much is retained in the pans, because it's a gallon of water that's put on each individual pan, so you can see how much water was collected beneath it and how much ran off, and then how much was still in the soil.
And then I always thought was cool too was the bare ground. A lot of that water is real dirty.
It is.
When you're losing a lot of the topsoil nutrients.
Yeah, anything you're putting on it is coming right off.
Yeah.
But even just a barrier, if you were to put anything on there, it helps slow the rainfall down, which, it could show if you had straw or something on there, like a garden, for example.
Oh, so just anything, even just some straw. I mean, for like you said, small, obviously you're going to go spread straw in your field, but for a small little garden. Yeah. So I think that was really interesting, especially, there were people who were not farmers who, their interest in the simulator, the rainfall simulator was, their garden and the small land that they manage at their house. And so, even just putting straw over your garden, for example, or a small patch of bare soil would help slow down the rain so that the soil has more time to absorb it. Yeah. No, since we've been using cover crops, we've seen a lot less, erosion. And we've had hunters actually a couple years ago. They came, I think it was in the spring. They were turkey hunting in May, it might have been around May because we're still planting corn. And the turkey hunters are like, man, why your fields aren't washed out like a lot of the other guys are? So we do cover crops and strip till, and I think that's the side hills don't wash away anymore, which is nice.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep, just anything to help, not only does it slow the water down, but the root system makes the soil stronger to absorb more. Yeah.
So how long did you work with Cooperative Extension?
I was there for about 3 years. So I started and, about the time the grant funding ran out or was close to running out is about the time I started looking for a new job.
Okay.
So it's good. I mean, I had a really good time and I learned a lot while I was working there, and, I enjoyed it. It's good work.
Yeah, that's the thing with the grant funding. You got to the money's got to be there through the state or whoever it is, and that's kind of, it's almost a year by year.
Yep.
Kind of cross your fingers, or is it kind of, there's going to be money there, or is it just, I guess with everything being cut the way it is now, it's anything's on the chopping block?
Yeah, and so it was a very unique position because it was not funded by one specific grant. So it was, funded by many different grants that, sometimes would span a year, sometimes would span 2 or 3 years. And so, you could get a grant to fund 20% of your position for a year and 50% of your position for 3 years. And then, so it was, more of just having 100% of my position funded by this variety of different grants with this variety of different lengths, of them. And when we, could have that money to do that work. So it was, there was some money there, but not enough for me to be a full-time employee anymore.
Yeah, that's tough, especially when you're doing good work, good research.
And work that, I enjoyed. It was fun to go to work and to work with Extension, but I think, everybody gets to a point where they have to move on, and, the grant funding tells you when that time is. I guess unfortunately. Yeah. So now you work for Organic Valley. Yep. So I started there in August of 2019.
Okay. And if you want to, what kind of work exactly do you do with them?
Yeah, so I'm the regional pool manager for this area. So basically, this half of New York that we live in. So I get to work with farmers in this region and really serve as kind of the liaison between the farmers here and our offices back in Wisconsin. So I get to kind of be the go-between between both of those different entities. Okay.
So do you go out, have you been able to go out to Wisconsin, or would you typically go Wisconsin, New York, or all over the Northeast, I guess? Yeah.
So typically, our offices are in Wisconsin, so we can go there. And I did get to go twice before COVID.
You did? Okay.
Yeah. So typically we would go out once or twice a year. But because of COVID, we haven't been out much at all. So, not since 2019. And then my region is just in New York, and then that northern tier of Pennsylvania that kind of matches with my New York region. So I spend most of my time traveling around farms in that area.
There's quite a few farms in Organic Valley, aren't there? And the co-op is a total?
Yeah. So we have about 1,600 dairy farms nationwide.
Wow. Okay. Northeast, mostly Northeast, Midwest, I would take it for the most part.
So yes and no. We do have a big population in the Northeast, but also have a lot in the Mideast and Midwest, and then we have some on the West Coast too.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so and you've been there now a little over a year, then I would take it, pre-COVID.
Yeah, so about a year and a half there.
Cool.
So, which is also a job that I love. So, it's nice to go from a job you love to a job you love.
You're very fortunate. And it sounds like you've been able to keep that being out and about with farmers and going on farms rather than have to be stuck into an office and doing desk work all day.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, it was looking pretty grim when I was looking for jobs. When I was going to leave Extension, I thought, this is it. Like, I'm going to be in an office. I'm going to be some type of office employee, and this is going to be it, because I needed a job, right? I couldn't be there forever. And it just, was really good timing that this job with Organic Valley became available, and I was looking, and it just happened to fit.
Boy. Yeah, you can't ask for anything easier than that, right?
Yeah, no, it was perfect.
Cool. Yeah, you're a very personal person, and I can see why, you go out and speak with farmers, probably very, it always helps when you go out and you're from a farm, I'm sure. You talk to farmers. Once they hear that, it's like, okay, it's not some person who's never dealt with farms or anything before.
Yeah, it gives you some credibility.
Yeah.
Especially, I think, these days with the dairy industry, there are so many inspections and, so many people that are coming to the farm to tell you what you're doing wrong. Mm-hmm. And some of those people have no idea what it's like to farm. They've never worked with cows in their entire life. So it's nice to have that experience going into these farms. And especially when I was meeting these farmers, I wasn't unaware of what was going on and what they were doing.
Yeah, you're practical.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we've over the years we've dealt with our share of I mean, they're doing their job, but it's like the book, how the book says it and how you do it on the farm, it's similar, but sometimes kind of unrealistic the way they want it done.
It's not a perfect match.
Yeah, but they got their job to do, and it's our job to give and take like
That's
anything.
right.
So
Yeah, everybody has to.
Yeah.
Everybody has to give and take.
Happy medium.
Yeah.
So I guess if you weren't working in agriculture, no affiliation, what do you think you would be doing as a job?
I have no idea. I think that's not true. I did at many points in my life think I was going to be an ag teacher. So I think if I weren't affiliated with ag at all, I would be a teacher of some, maybe math, but would not be my dream.
It'd be, kind of be so math.
Yeah.
Your math whiz?
Yeah, sometimes. Math was my best subject in school.
Okay.
So I think if I had to teach something that wasn't ag, it would be math.
Yeah. Yeah, that'd definitely be, I guess instead of dealing with farmers and cows, you deal with the kids, right?
Yeah. And then, it just gets into this whole thing. Maybe I'd want to be a kindergarten teacher because, I'd rather work with kindergartners than 10th graders, but I have no idea.
Yeah, that's I guess it's kind of, well, not pick your poison, but the kindergartens, at least, they're kind of, they're going to, what you're going to get with a middle schooler. You don't know what you're going to get day to day, I'm sure.
No, I'm sure you don't.
So, what else, you have hobbies? Do you do, what else, what other kind of things do you like to do outside of work?
Yeah, I think, we have been really busy in my life. So my husband and I got married and then we built a house, and it seems like have continued to be building or working on our house, which takes up a lot of free time. But I think, other than that, we really like to just be outdoors. We go on a lot of hikes in the summertime and in the fall time. So, that's one of our favorite things to do. And it's nice because we live so close to Truman Park and so many state parks.
Yeah, you're really, are you walking distance of some of those parks, or?
I could be. It's a pretty steep hill.
Okay.
So but as far as distance, it's definitely walkable.
Yeah.
And you would hike it. So, you would hike up and down the hill that it would take to walk up and down to get to Truman Park.
Yeah. It's beautiful. Absolutely. People haven't been to the parks in Ithaca. They're beautiful.
Absolutely gorgeous.
Absolutely gorgeous.
Mm-hmm.
But, you kind of, like you said, your life has been filled with, in your free time, doing other programs. And I know your mother, Debbie, is very involved as well. I can see how, I'm sure she was, every time you had a spare moment, sending you to, some sort of ag-related program or activity.
Yeah. And I was so fortunate that my parents were so supportive of, anything that I wanted to do growing up. And even now, they're so supportive and would do anything, to make sure that I could, do whatever I felt was important to me. So all of those programs that I participated in high school, it really, I was very fortunate to have parents who supported me and who drove me around for many years.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sure is a lot of, with all those Dairy Princess and 40, that's a lot of. So were you Dairy Princess for? You were doing those all simultaneously then?
Yeah, and that's what happens in high school. Is you do all of these things and you work up to them. So the year that I was Princess was also the year that I was in FFA because it was my senior year, and it was also a year that you were kind of a leader in your 4-H club, and I also was a leader in different programs that I participated in, non-ag related in high school. So I think you just kind of build up and then you do everything in your senior year and then you're done.
Yeah. Then it kind of comes to a screeching. It sounds like you have all this free time.
Yeah.
Or you go to college and
yeah. You're like, now what?
Were you in any ag programs at college?
Yeah, so mainly just some ag clubs that I participated in, and then I did a lot of non-ag related stuff in college too. So like student government, and I was actually a tour guide for the college, so I would do a lot of open houses.
Okay, I got a tour there. I applied to Cobleskill. Really good school. I just chose Cornell instead, but no, it was a great school, great program, and
yeah, and it was nice because it wasn't close to home. So I think Cornell would have been a really great school and a really good option for me, but I didn't want to be in Ithaca.
I know exactly what you mean. Yeah,
So
you need a little bit of buffer space.
Yeah.
Get away. Feel like you're getting away.
Yeah. So it would have been nice if I didn't grow up here, but I think it's a tough decision to make, if you want to continue to stay here or if you want to get away, especially when, I knew or I had planned to all along, to come home and to build a house on the farm. So I knew that really going to college was going to be my only time away from this area.
Yeah, to get away. Dude, yeah. I had a lot of thought about that too when I was choosing colleges, and I just only applied to Cobleskill Cornell, and I chose Cornell. I just liked it for some reason. I just felt at home when I was there. And
you can like whatever college you like.
And it was that same thing of like, man, I'm 20 minutes from, I'm not really away from home. So that's why Tyler Beck and myself and Mark Van Erden, we were like, we went abroad, and that was kind of our getaway for 4 months, which was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
got that feeling of not being able to just hop in your car and drive. Not that I ever really did unless I had to, but yeah.
And I mean, it's nice. I'm sure it would have been nice to be so close to home if I needed to, but it's definitely nice to get away and,
Yeah. It worked in my favor my senior year. My dad had some of his surgeries. I was going back and forth working.
Yeah.
So it's weird how things kind of work out in the end, even you don't think they're going to, or you just.
And you would have no idea, right? So when you picked Cornell, you would have no idea.
Yeah, no.
You needed to be so close to home.
No, yeah. So it's funny how those things work out. So I guess, what do you think, just future of agriculture? Where do you see it going? And, what are your thoughts?
Yeah. I, am always really hopeful that we continue to be in a really strong industry. I think, the more we progress as an industry, the more consumers will start to really understand, how food is made and where it comes from. And I think that that's really what we need. I think we need consumers to have a good understanding of what farmers are doing. And so I'm hopeful that they continue to learn and educate themselves. And, we as an industry need to continue to educate them. They can't do it all on their own. But so I'm really hopeful that the more that, consumers learn, the more that we continue to be a strong industry.
I had a guy at Cornell tell me one time, he said, if you don't regulate yourself to a certain extent, they'll do it for you. You know what I mean? If you don't try to do the best you can do and show proof of it, someone's going to come in and tell you how to do it. So it's best to get ahead of the game. That's always kind of my thing. You're best off just doing your best to stay ahead of what might be coming down the pike.
Yeah. And I think that that's exactly what we've seen, right? Consumers say, this is what we want and this is what we're going to buy. And so you have to, meet those demands already.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's weird how it's kind of, the niches have changed over time. If you know what I mean, like organic, and then you had GMO, and now local. It's kind of funny how it's always kind of a moving target.
It is, yeah. And you're never going to be right there.
No.
Yeah. And I think it is really interesting. And I don't know what it is that attributes to how that target continues to move. But I think it'll be interesting, as we see this kind of next generation become really the main buyers in the store, as they start to grow up and, get married and have families, what their preferences will be and what changes they will demand of the industry.
Yeah, it'll always be a moving target. So unless a storm blows, like now in Texas, and then it's just like everything's gone.
Right.
Have you seen those pictures of?
Yeah, there's I saw a video of nothing in a Walmart in Texas. There was like no paper plates, no paper cups, because nobody has water to do dishes. So everybody went out to buy paper cups and paper plates and napkins.
It's crazy down there.
Yeah, it's terrible.
I know. I have some family down there, and their house was fine, but apparently they live in Texas. They drove to check on a neighbor's or a friend's house, and then when they got back, their pipes had burst in their house, and there was just water everywhere.
Yeah, it must be a nightmare just to watch your house flood from the ceiling.
Yeah,
It's terrible.
Gosh, but hopefully it looks like it's gonna warm up. But still, it was 40 degrees or whatever it's going to warm up to it's still, it's not going to melt a whole lot of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. And, it's one thing I think for us to experience this and to work through it in the Northeast where, it's not brand new to us. It's not shocking to us, but it must be a whole new world down there.
You feel bad for the farmers, the cattle, and I can't imagine. I'm sure they'll come out with numbers with the amount of acres of crops, guys are planting for, we're going to feel it. People are going to feel it in the pocketbook and at the stores. So
yeah. And it's just, continued, right? I mean, we just kind of got that hit from COVID when processing facilities got shut down.
Yeah. It never ends, does it?
No, never. It's a whole new world.
Yeah.
You gotta live through it. You never know what tomorrow's going to bring, but you're going to have to work through it.
Yeah. Gosh, it's crazy. But, no, I guess I don't really want to cut it short. This has gone, the podcast episode hasn't gone very long, but I kind of kept you longer here just with the whole, so I don't want to, it's starting to snow bad out there. I don't want you to have to sit here and get buried in snow.
Yeah.
So, but is there anything else you want to touch on, or questions for me? I mean, what?
Yeah, I think, I'm happy to keep talking, but, also, I think we've hit on a lot and, a lot of my life. So,
okay.
It's.
Yeah, no, usually I'd probably keep going, but just, like I said, I hate to hold you here. And as your car's getting piled on with snow and the roads are kind of getting bad. When I drove back, I was surprised at how much everything's gotten whited out. So like I said, if I didn't have the whole have to run to the farm, run back, it would have been a little bit time-wise easier. Yeah. So if it weren't snowing, I wouldn't feel so bad.
Yeah.
But
it's snowing.
But anyway, thank you, Abbie, for coming. And I really appreciate it. And we'll have to do this again sometime. We'll meet back up and you can give us an update on how everything's going on your farm and the improvements in your house and all that. So
sounds good. Yeah. Thank you for having me. And hopefully next time, things will go. There won't be any surprises. Hopefully
it'll be a smooth sailing through. We'll see. Or I'll just shut my phone off. Then I won't get any calls. Right? Yeah.
That's a great plan.
Can't do that. But anyway, thanks everyone for tuning in, and I'll see you all in the next episode.